talking about our top 25 running back rankings and how we tiered them out. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I think it's pretty much assumed, collective around different experts and even non-experts about which guys are going to go in the top 4 or 5. So we're talking about guys like Jamaal Charles, Adrian Peterson, Matt Forte, LeSean McCoy. Those are kind of the top 4 in some order. They might differ a little bit as we split hairs about these different guys. But when we did our rankings, I've actually got Jamaal Charles first, followed by LeSean Forte and Adrian Peterson. Jay's got Adrian Peterson, LeSean McCoy, Jamaal Charles, Matt Forte. The glaring difference between the 3 of us that we have in the top tier would be the Jimmer actually has one Mr. Giovanni Bernard as the 3rd overall running back, which is going against the mainstream for sure. But let's all remember, that may sound a little crazy to you, but statistics show that every year that half of the top 10 running backs that get drafted do not end up in the top 10, and that means 5 other guys or 6 other guys moves up. So Giovanni Bernard could potentially be one of those guys. So Jim, why do you feel so strongly about one Mr. Giovanni Bernard?
I just like Gio. I think he's got a great upside. I wanted a wild card, and I figured this guy is the one guy I know that could break into the top 5. He can break in. He can be that guy, and no one else probably sees it coming. I just went with a gut-level feeling, quite frankly. Jay Gruden, I think, should probably coach defense instead of offense because he was that worthless. And now that Hugh Jackson has been promoted and he's officially the offensive coordinator, I think that's going to make a huge difference. Back when he was at Oakland, I mean, their teams were 2nd and 7th in rushing. So we're going to see a significant jump. I think, honestly, Gio is going to emerge as the number 1 running back over there and replacing whatever his name is, so he'll be completely out of there. So there'll be nothing to stop him from getting goal line stands. Not to mention PPR numbers. I mean, he's going to catch he's going to get a lot of touches out of the backfield. So I'm really big on him. I think he's going to be a huge move. I know these guys disagree with me, but I'm making a statement right now with Gio.
Yeah, I've got Gio at 12th overall. The guy's definitely got what it takes to break into the top 10. I don't know about the top 5, Jimmer, but he is definitely a PPR dynamo. Ben Jarvis Green Ellis is going to just fade away into the sunset, I think, and Gio will be the number 1 guy there for the most part. He does catch a crap ton of passes, so I think top 5 is probably a little much, but top 10 is a possibility. How about you, Robert?
Yeah, I'm a little more bullish on him than you, Jay. I've got him at 7. I had the guy last year. I drafted him as many leagues as I could, and I was thrilled with his output as a rookie. He definitely is phenomenal in PPR leagues. He catches a ton of balls. Yeah, Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, a.k.a. the law firm, is there, but he's getting older by the second, and that guy is not going to be a 50-50 split. Gio is going to be taking more over just the attempts and rushing attempts and so forth. So I'm not sure if Gio's built big enough to get too many more attempts. I think that may actually hurt his production if he were to do that, but I definitely think he's going to move up from where he was last year and definitely crack the top 10. I just don't have the kahunas, I guess, to put him top 3, but we will definitely see.
It's all right, Rob. I got those kahunas.
Evidently. Fair enough. All right, so we are going to talk about somebody else in our top tier, one Mr. Adrian Peterson. So everyone would say absolutely, Peterson's a top 4 running back off the board for sure. I've got him at 4. Jimmer has him at 2. But Jay, you have Adrian Peterson number 1 overall and number 1 running back, obviously, as well. Why are you so high on AP, a guy who most people think is starting to kind of fall off just a little bit?
Well, I'm going to start off with one name for you, and that's Norv Turner. Norv Turner showed up there, and this guy is responsible for a couple other names, Emmitt Smith and LaDainian Tomlinson. So I think the AP is going to get used a lot more in the passing game, which is going to help him a lot in PPR leagues, as if he needs help anyway. The guy's already a beast. He's going to be definitely used more on third downs than he was before as a receiver out of the backfield. I say AP rushes for 1,700 yards this year. He's going to catch at least 50 balls for 550 yards. And he will be the number 1 fantasy running back. overall. Jim, I see you shaking your head.
Oh, man. Well, the one thing I will agree with you, I think Norv's going to get tremendous production out of him. I think he very well could have the best season this year for running backs. But the one thing I think you are taking for granted with Emmitt Smith and LaDainian Tomlinson, both of those guys were prime of their career, never injured. AP has had that problem. That's why I'm a little skeptical. I mean, AP is very susceptible, like any other running back, to have an injury, and he's out for the season. So that's my only hesitation is I don't feel as comfortable as him finishing as strong as everyone else.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, guys, I mean, we're splitting hairs here with these top 4 guys or so. You just got to come up with some reason or rationale to put one guy over the other. For me, I mean, Adrian Peterson is a beast. Everybody knows that, how he came back from that ACL. But he's had 2 major surgeries in the last 3 years. He's just coming off a growing injury that he had repaired. It should be a better offense. They just drafted Teddy Bridgewater, we'll get into next week, and that should help the offense in whole. The other thing I'll mention, again, just splitting hairs, just a little nugget. I wasn't aware of this, actually, but the Vikings are building $1 billion or doing a renovation to their current facility. So the next couple years, they're going to be playing all of their home games outdoors where the Minnesota whatever play for college. So they're used to playing in a dome. His numbers, like anybody else's, typically aren't as good, outside, especially in the colder weather, as they would be in the perfect environment in the dome. So I don't think that's a huge deal, but it's just something that I wasn't aware of. I thought I'd make you guys aware of, and that's another little reason why I might not have him number 1 overall. But no one's going to bicker with somebody who has him there. So again, LeSean McCoy is the guy that we all have. I have him at 2. Jay's got him at 2. And the Jimmer has him at 4. So Jay, why do you? I mean, you're high on McCoy as you should be, but what are your kind of rationales for what he's going to end up doing this year?
Well, look, again, we're talking about PPR. The guy caught 52 balls last season, on top of having right around 300 carries. Even with Sproles coming in, I say he still catches at least 40 passes this season, gets around 400 yards. And he's still the only show on the ground in Philly. So I still see around 300 carries coming his way, which I think is going to translate to about 1,600 yards. We all know Chip Kelly is going to keep leaning on McCoy. He loves this guy. It fits his offense. So that's a good thing. And, I mean, let's all put it into perspective here with a little something LeSean himself said. He said his kid is a better football player than Tim Tebow. So if his kid, his offspring, if you will, is better than Tim Tebow, that must mean LeSean McCoy is a god among men. Jim, I know you love Chip Kelly.
That's a little steep. I love Chip. Actually, I was really disappointed, and again, we'll go into this tomorrow night, or next week, rather, but Eagles just drafted a defensive end who I think will probably be one of the biggest busts in Eagles franchise draft history. They should have gone after Marquise Lee or a wide receiver because they really do need another talent out of there. The one knock I will say on this, and the reason why I'm not quite as high on McCoy, and I've just watched Chip Kelly as an Oregon Duck fan since I was a kid. Chip doesn't like to play favorites, doesn't like to rely on one guy too heavily. Unfortunately, that's all he got, so that's why I still think McCoy's going to be good. Darren Sproles is going to get surprisingly a lot of touches, and I don't think everyone's quite fully prepared for that, and that's why I think Sproles is going to be actually a sneaky good flex position player. And McCoy, I think, still running back 1.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I mean, the guy's a beast. He was the leading rusher last season. I mean, even with Sproles being there, yeah, he might, take a little bit of some of his catches away, but McCoy's still going to catch a ton of balls out of the backfield. Sproles is going to do nothing from a rushing perspective, so McCoy's still going to have all that, production. So I think we all have him in the top 4 for a very good reason. But yeah, so guys, that's it for us this week. On our next show, we'll be breaking down and tiering the top 25 fantasy wide receivers for 2014. It's a very similar show, but talking about wide receivers instead of running backs. We'll be comparing our rankings and our tier groups to the current ADP, again, on Fantasy Football Calculator. So tune in a couple weeks to see how we match up with those numbers. And again, to remind everybody, we're live every 2 weeks here in the off season. We'll switch to every week again as we get closer to the start of the NFL season. So tune in on Friday, May 23rd for our next live hangout. But we will, however, given that we just had the NFL draft, we're going to be popping on early next week for a special NFL draft recap show and discussing all the fantasy relevant rookies coming into these different scenarios for 2014. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be tweeting those shows out and let you know about it. So in the meantime, you can download our show on iTunes. You can now find us on Stitcher Radio, and you can check out our previous shows on the Red Zone Warriors Fantasy Football Show YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and tweet us all your fantasy football questions at Red Zone Warriors. So, for the Cushman, the Jimmer, I am Rob Smith. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.